Before we begin, please be aware that this podcast contains discussion of sensitive topics, such as abuse of minors, of vulnerable adults, and safeguarding practices. Some content may be distressing or triggering for listeners. This program is intended for an adult audience. If you or someone you know is affected by these issues, we encourage you to seek support from a trusted professional or a local support service. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to this episode of Inside Safeguarding, the official podcast of the Pontifical Commission for the Protection of Minors. From Rome, I'm William Roberts from the Commission's communications team. Now, most months we begin by looking back over the Commission's latest publications and activities, but this is the end of the year and we wanted this episode to be a little different. An end-of-year retrospective, if you will. A moment to step back from the pace of the month to month to reflect on what the whole of 2025 has revealed about the Church's safeguarding mission and about the Commission's growing role within it. It's been a year of profound transitions. Obviously, the Jubilee has shaped the spiritual atmosphere of the Church, drawing attention to themes of pilgrimage, of repair and renewal. And at the same time, we've lived through the loss of Pope Francis, whose decision to establish the Commission in 2014 helped really to set safeguarding on a new institutional path. His passing marks not only the end of a pontificate, but the closing of a chapter defined by a willingness to confront painful truths and to insist that the protection of minors must sit at the heart of ecclesial life. From within that period of mourning, a new pontificate has begun. And in the days leading up to the conclave that elected Pope Leo, the Commission issued a call to prayer for the cardinals of the Church. The language of this prayer was sober and direct. It was centered on safeguarding, of course, healing, justice, renewal. It was a reminder that the choice of the Pope is never just about governance or continuity, but about moral direction, about whether the Church is prepared to protect the vulnerable with clarity, with courage, and consistency. And that clarity was echoed soon after. In early June, Pope Leo XIV received the members of the Commission in audience. The meeting carried symbolic and practical weight. It affirmed that safeguarding would remain central to the Church's public responsibility and that the Commission's advisory role would continue with independence. Several strands of the Commission's work came into focus during that encounter, and I feel they help frame the year as a whole. The first is the UGF, the Universal Guidelines Framework, a project that has steadily taken shape throughout the year. The aim is not uniformity imposed from the centre, but consistency, anchored in shared principles. The UGF seeks to establish minimum safeguarding standards that are measurable, that are adaptable to local contexts, and that are rooted in the Church's moral vision. Pilot initiatives across different regions have helped test how these guidelines function in practice, highlighting both their potential and the work which is still required. Closely linked to this is the Memorare initiative, the Commission's capacity building program. This year, its presence really has become increasingly concrete the world over. Rather than focusing on abstract policy, Memorare has prioritized accompaniment. It really is the boots on the ground initiative of the Commission, training local safeguarding teams, supporting the creation of listening structures, strengthening cooperation with civil authorities, and helping churches communicate with greater transparency. And a third pillar has been accountability, most visibly expressed through the Commission's second annual report, which was launched on the 16th of October. This report represents a significant evolution from the pilot edition. Its methodology has expanded, drawing on a wider range of sources, and deepening engagement with victims and survivors. An enlarged survivor focus group, in fact, has played a central role, offering insights that shaped recommendations and informed ongoing work on reparations. Remember, this report is not a catalogue of success stories. It's designed as a diagnostic tool, identifying strengths, gaps, and persistent challenges across multiple regions. Its purpose is not to declare an endpoint, but rather to establish a rhythm of evaluation, a way of measuring progress, tracking commitments, and keeping safeguarding anchored in evidence rather than intention alone. Beyond these structural developments, 2025 has also shown a growing attentiveness to emerging risks. Early in the year, the Commission reaffirmed its commitment to protecting children in the digital world, recognizing that online spaces are now inseparable from childhood itself. Conversations around AI, data, and regulation have underscored how rapidly the safeguarding landscape is changing. The question is no longer whether the Church must engage these realities, but rather how quickly and responsibly it can do so. In other news, the Commission's leadership transition has also shaped the year. In July, Archbishop Thibault Verny was appointed as president, succeeding Cardinal Sean O'Malley, who had guided it since its founding. The transition was very smooth, an explicit recognition that safeguarding can't depend on personalities alone. Structures, standards, habits must be strong enough to endure beyond any individual mandate. And then, of course, we had the Commission's 2 annual plenary assemblies. These gatherings serve as moments of collective discernment, allowing all the various members of the Commission to review progress, confront difficulties, and to refine its priorities. The autumn plenary assembly, particularly in Krakow, the first under the new presidency, stood out as a key milestone, both consolidating existing initiatives and setting a clear course for the years ahead. Alongside governance and policy, the years also made space for gestures that speak to the deeper dimensions of safeguarding. During Holy Week, before Easter, within the context of the Jubilee, members of the Commission took part in a pilgrimage of reparation and hope. Carrying prayers and testimonies gathered over time, the pilgrimage acknowledged wounds that remain and the responsibilities that cannot be deferred. It underscored how safeguarding is not only technical, legal, although that is a necessary aspect of it, but also, in the Commission's case, spiritual and deeply human. So taken together, these moments offer a particular picture of 2025, a remarkable year marked by grief, by succession, by the reflection of the Jubilee, and renewed resolve by the steady weaving together of standards, capacity building, and accountability. Progress has not been dramatic or instant, but it has been deliberate. You're listening to Inside Safeguarding. In our next segment, I'll be speaking with Monsignor Luis-Manuel Ali Herrera, Secretary of the Commission. I'm William Roberts. Thank you for joining me. And now for this interview part of this episode of Inside Safeguarding, we're joined by Monsignor Luis-Manuel Ali Herrera. Monsignor Ali serves as the Secretary of the Commission and has become one of its most recognizable voices, known for his clear teaching on transparency, his pastoral grounding in survivor accompaniment, and of course his long-standing commitment to shaping safeguarding cultures across the Church. He joins us remotely over a call today. The interview will be conducted in his native Spanish with the assistance of an interpreter. Monsignor Ali, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. And to begin with, could you please offer a brief introduction of yourself, your background, and how your path first led you into safeguarding work?
Thank you very much, and greetings to everyone listening to this podcast. I am grateful for the opportunity to speak about a subject that I have long understood as both a mission and a calling from the Lord. I have been working in this field for 15 years. It began when I was a seminary formator, responsible for psychological assessment and support at the major seminary of the Archdiocese of Bogotá. Through that work, and through the people I met and accompanied in a therapeutic context, I came face to face with a deeply painful reality within the Church: sexual abuse in clerical settings, committed by those meant to proclaim the good news, but who instead brought despair, bitterness, and profound sorrow. For this reason, I've always lived this work as a calling from the Lord and have committed myself to it accordingly. That is also why, just over 10 years ago, when Pope Francis asked me to become a member of the Commission, I accepted it as a responsibility undertaken for the good of the Church, for the accompaniment of victims, and for helping to make the Church a safe home. What has been especially significant for me is that this responsibility coincided with my episcopal ordination. I have been a bishop for 10 years, almost exactly the same length of time that I have served with the Commission. From the very beginning of my episcopal ministry, I have carried this responsibility, first as a member, and now as secretary.
2025 has been a momentous year, Monsignor Ali, with the death of the Commission's founding father, Pope Francis. What would your reflections be on his legacy?
Uy, esto daría para muchos podcasts.
The legacy of Pope Francis is vast and could easily fill many podcast episodes. One of its most decisive moments was the establishment of the Commission through a chirograph in 2014, an act that profoundly shaped our work and commitment. If I were to summarize his legacy in a single point, it would be this: his deep sensitivity and his insistence on accompanying victims with genuine empathy. Even before the Commission existed, one of his earliest actions as Pope was to meet with and listen attentively to victims at the Domus Sanctae Martyr. It was there that he grasped with clarity what the Church was being called to do. Victims must be listened to, cared for, accompanied, and respected in their search for truth and justice, and therefore for full reparation. Seen in this light, the key decisions of his pontificate fall into place: the motu proprio like a loving mother, the lifting of the pontifical secret, the revision of Book 6 of the Code of Canon Law, the updated Sacramentorum Sanctitatis Tutela, the safeguarding guidelines for Vatican City State, and the 2019 Summit on the Protection of Minors. That summit, which brought together presidents of episcopal conferences from around the world, major superiors of religious institutes, and members of the Roman Curia, led to the drafting and promulgation of Vos Estis Lux Mundi. This text has had a lasting impact on the Church's work of accompanying victims and protecting minors. The enduring legacy of Pope Francis is that these concerns are now woven into the life of the Church itself. Alongside mercy, care for creation, and synodality, the accompaniment of victims stands as a defining mark of his pontificate.
A groundbreaking figure, indeed. Pope Francis was then succeeded on the 8th of May of this year by Pope Leo XIV. What are the main differences that you, Monsignor Ali, see between the approaches of these two pontificates to the Commission's work?
We are speaking of two pontiffs with distinct styles, not only in temperament, but also in formation, pastoral experience, and leadership. Both are gifts to the Church, and both show deep attentiveness to the great challenges of our time: war, poverty, and migration. Both are also firmly committed to the accompaniment of victims, to making the Church a safe home, and to strong prevention and protection policies. In the first months of his pontificate, Pope Leo XIV has made this clear through his actions. We see this in the letter he addressed to the Peruvian journalist Paula Ugas, in his message to the Philippine Episcopal Conference on the occasion of their first safeguarding meeting involving other Asian conferences, and in his words to victims during Vespers celebrated for them as part of the Jubilee of Reconciliation and Hope. There have also been concrete gestures. A particularly clear example is his personal accompaniment of victims of the Sorgelitium, whom he received here in Vatican City, as well as victims from Belgium. These differences reflect distinct pastoral approaches. One point Pope Leo XIV has consistently emphasized to the Commission is that responsibility for accompanying victims lies first and foremost with each local church. While he remains personally willing to meet victims, this must never replace the responsibility of bishops, dioceses, and communities to offer real and compassionate accompaniment where people live.
Early days then, but definitely promising signs of a step in the right direction. Now, you've been secretary since the spring of 2024, and you've said that one of your goals has been to work more closely with the Curia and the local church, but within the annual report, we see places where improvement is needed in this field. In your meetings, have you seen evidence of any improvement in the areas highlighted by the annual report?
After 10 years as a member of the Commission, I can say that I have witnessed the steady development of dialogue with the Roman Curia. In the early years, engagement with certain dicasteries was sometimes difficult, not due to open resistance, but because the role of the Commission was not yet fully understood, including by ourselves. With the promulgation of Predicate Evangelium, particularly Article 78, our mandate became clearer. Since then, dialogue has grown more regular, structured, and constructive. Today, engagement with the dicasteries is a defining part of our daily work. We now work directly with the Secretariat of State, the Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, and the dicasteries for clergy, religious life, the laity, and bishops. In several cases, these relationships are formalized through memoranda of understanding. One concrete example is the first safeguarding courses organized for Vatican City State personnel. Developed with USLA and the Vatican City State government, it brought together representatives from across the Roman Curia and offered an important opportunity to share experience and good practice.
A tricky reality of the Commission is that it would appear that quite often the recommendations from Rome are not evenly applied by local churches. Over the past year, you've, of course, traveled extensively to meet with representatives from the local churches. Have you seen any signs of progress, particularly not only in the prevention of abuse, but also in the protection of victims and survivors?
Our mandate includes prevention and protection policies, the accompaniment of victims, and assistance to the Holy Father in responding to victims who approach him directly. A central element of this work is our role as a bridge to local churches. Through visits across Africa, Asia, the Americas, and Europe, we have seen just how essential this role is. During these visits, we meet Episcopal conferences, safeguarding officers, prevention teams, and groups of victims. We listen carefully and assess how local churches are implementing safeguarding policies and providing meaningful accompaniment. This bridging role lies at the heart of our mission and explains why, together with our president, Archbishop Thibault, we have undertaken these regional visits.
Looking ahead, 5 to 10 years from now, what concrete indicators would signal that the Church has made real, measurable progress? Or in simpler terms, has the Church come to terms with its past?
Looking 10 years ahead, I cannot say where I will be. What I do know is that I hold this responsibility as secretary for a 5-year term, and that the shared vision of the Commission is clear. Our hope is that the protection of minors and the prevention of abuse become central to the life of the Church. Just as we now speak naturally of synodality, solidarity, and a church for the poor, so too must making the Church a safe home lie at the heart of evangelization. We are also conscious of the challenges ahead, questions of vulnerability, the digital world, online abuse, and the ethical implications of artificial intelligence. These themes will shape future study groups and forthcoming annual reports, including those on religious life in 2026 and on justice and institutional renewal in 2027. We are likewise committed to accompanying major church events involving minors and vulnerable adults, including World Youth Day 2027 in South Korea, ensuring that safeguarding is clearly presented as good news. Our ultimate hope is that prevention policies and the compassionate accompaniment of victims become a visible and integral part of the Church's evangelizing mission.
So wonderful to hear such a hopeful view of the future from you, Monsignor Ali. Thank you very much for taking the time and joining us here on our little podcast, which has been growing steadily over the past months, but certainly made all the better with your valuable insights. Thank you again, and I wish you a very happy Christmas.
Thank you, and I wish you all a very happy Christmas.
And with that brings us to the end of this retrospective episode of Inside Safeguarding. Over the course of each month, we'll continue to follow the Commission's work, speak to those engaged in safeguarding on the ground, and to take time to reflect on the wider journey towards accountability and change. If you'd like to read more about the topics discussed today or explore the Commission's latest articles and resources in full, you can visit us at tutelaminorum.org. You can also subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, where future episodes will be published regularly. From all of us here at the Commission, we'd like to wish our listeners a very happy Christmas and a joyful start to the new year. Thank you for listening and for taking time to stay connected to these conversations. I'm William Roberts. Until next time.